16 years after the death of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, Rome is run by corrupt twin emperors Geta and Caracalla. Aurelius' dream of a perfect Rome has fallen because the twins' aggression is spreading through the empire and slowly bringing it down, so the fall of the great city is inevitable. In the North African kingdom of Numidia, Hanno lives a calm life with his wife Rhino. However, peace is interrupted when sirens announce an invasion by the Roman army. After seeing the smoke coming from the city, Hanno and Rhino put on their armor and join the rest of the citizens to listen to their leader Jugurtha make a defense plan. Before leaving for battle, Hanno and Rhino exchange rings and promise to look out for each other. The couple joins the team at the wall and Hanno gives an inspiring speech. Soon the Roman ships led by General Acatius appear at the shore, so the Numidians open fire with their catapults and bows. The ships take heavy damage, however Acatius orders his men to keep moving while they retaliate with their own catapults and archers. Fire spreads on both sides and several men die in just a few minutes. Once the ships reach the fortress, the Roman army lowers some platforms and invades. Acatius continues to lead as he brings down soldier after soldier with his sword and no mercy. Hanno does the same on his side, killing Romans at impressive speed. As the Romans storm into the fortress with the strength of their shields as protection, Rhino shoots her arrows from above, offering cover for the sword fighters. When Acatius sees her, he orders his own archers to fire back and Rhino is shot dead. Hanno watches in horror how her body falls into the sea and a Roman hits him from behind, making him fall as well. While unconscious, Hanno watches the mythical ferryman take Rhino into the afterlife. He tries running after her as he desperately screams her name, but at that moment his body resurfaces and he wakes up. Nearby he finds the dead body of his wife, so he cries as he takes the arrow from her chest before the Romans capture him. Afterward Acatius claims the city for Rome while his men burn the bodies. All the citizens including Hanno get burning brands on their bodies, marking them as slaves. Next the slaves are sent to Rome in the ships. During the trip Hanno notices Jugurtha has a serious wound and helps him wrap it up. Jugurtha thinks he doesn't have much time left and remembers the day he found Hanno as a lost child in the desert. This triggers a memory in Hanno's mind. He was a kid living with a good family, but his mother sent him away when the Romans attacked his home. Eventually the ships arrive at Ostia, the port of Rome. Acatius is received as a hero and the twin emperors crown him with laurels. He asks for a break from war to spend time with his wife, but the twins announce that they'll be invading Persia and India next. The slaves are taken to Antium on the outskirts of Rome, where Macrinus oversees the gladiator training. Jugurtha, Hanno, and a few other slaves are released in a practice arena, where they must fight a bunch of feral baboons. Hidden soldiers shoot darts at the baboons to make them more violent and soon these beasts are jumping on the slaves to kill them with their teeth. Jugurtha refuses to fight and drops to his knees as he waits for the end. Hanno wants to save him from the creatures, but it's too late and Jugurtha dies. When the baboon comes after Hanno, he stops it by putting his chains in its mouth and biting its leg. Then he chokes the baboon to death with his chains, which impresses Macrinus to the point he decides he'll buy Hanno. Afterward Hanno and his friends are sent to the barracks with the rest of Macrinus' slaves, who mock Hanno by making baboon noises. Once the slaves are fed, they're taken to Macrinus so he can judge the new recruits. Hanno refuses to speak so Macrinus orders gladiator trainer Vigo to fight him. At first it looks like Hanno has a disadvantage, but soon he recovers and fights back with impressive skill to defeat Vigo. Then Hanno is sent to the private chambers, where Macrinus explains he chooses gladiators for their rage and Hanno has lots of it. Hanno finally talks to say his goal is to kill Acatius, and Macrinus explains he can achieve that if he wins enough fights in Rome. Meanwhile Acatius reunites with his wife Lucilla, the daughter of the previous emperor. He admits he's tired of the twins' tyranny, so he and Lucilla begin making plans to rebel against the emperors and make Rome great again. Sometime later Macrinus brings Hanno to a party in the city thrown by Senator Thraox. Hanno and one of Thraox's slaves are forced to fight with swords to death in front of the emperors. At first Hanno refuses to kill and attacks the other man using furniture and any object he can find around, but the guy refuses to surrender so Hanno has no choice but to stab him with the sword. Geta is very impressed and asks Hanno where he's from, but Hanno answers with a quote about hell from Virgil's The Aeneid. Thankfully the emperors find the poetry amusing and look forward to seeing Hanno in the arena. After the party, Macrinus scolds Hanno for getting cheeky in front of the emperors and asks where he learned such words. Hanno says his city had a Roman prisoner and he picked up a few stories from him, but Macrinus doesn't believe him. To Hanno's shock, he's paid 2 coins for the fight and learns that gladiators can save up to buy their freedom. That night in a hidden chamber, Lucilla and Acatius meet with a few senators to share their plans to save Rome. Acatius explains the Roman army is loyal to him and the senators agree to support him. A few days later Hanno and other slaves are brought to Rome for the gladiator games in the Colosseum. They are impressed by the architecture and the statues, but they also notice all the poor people on the streets. Macrinus meets with Thraox and they agree to double their bets. At the Colosseum, the emperors receive Acatius and Lucilla on the main seats and the crowd chants the general's name. After a few words from Acatius, the slaves enter the arena and gladiator champion Glycio comes in riding a rhino. Hanno acts as the group leader and makes a strategy to dodge the rhino's attacks. At first it goes well, but soon a slave is knocked down. The wound makes him run more slowly, so Glycio easily captures him with some bolas and the Rhino kills him with its horn. Then Hanno runs some dirt through his hands, which reminds Lucilla of her former lover Maximus, the protagonist of the first movie. He throws some dirt at the Rhino too to create a distraction and jumps out of the way, causing the beast to crash against the wall. Glycio falls off the Rhino and gets injured, but he can still move and goes after Hanno. As the men fight and beat each other up, Geta remembers the quote Hanno shared at the party and Lucilla takes it as another clue. Hanno and Glycio continue to fight fiercely using any weapon they can pick up around the arena. When Glycio manages to knock Hanno down, Caracalla chooses blood, but Lucilla asks for mercy. Geta gives a thumbs up to spare Hanno, who says he doesn't want to be pitied by the Romans and starts fighting again. In just a few moves, he manages to stab Glycio and the crowd chants the word kill. This time Geta turns his thumb down and Hanno decapitates Glycio with 2 swords. Now the crowd and even the other slaves chant Hanno's name. In the gladiators' quarters, Dr. Ravi takes care of Hanno's wounds. After the fight, Lucilla goes to her private quarters and puts together the clues she's seen today. The quote and the running dirt confirm Hanno is Lucius, the son she had with Maximus. When Lucius was a kid, he was the only legit heir to the throne, so Lucilla sent him away to save him from the people who wanted to kill him for power. Lucilla cries as she realizes her beloved son is back and invites Macrinus to share a meal. She tries to act casual as she asks about his slaves, but Macrinus can tell she's hiding something. Later Macrinus asks around and learns that Lucilla used to have a son who disappeared. Rumors said Lucilla's late husband wasn't the boy's father because he preferred the company of men. This information helps Macrinus start putting 2 and 2 together. In the evening, Lucilla escapes through a hidden tunnel and meets with a senator friend, who sneaks her into the gladiator's cells. Hanno reveals he does remember her and his real name, but he says Lucius is dead and he's only Hanno now. Lucilla tries to explain herself, however Hanno angrily yells at her and kicks her out. When Lucilla returns home, she tells Acatius that her son is alive and begs for his help, which is overheard by a maid. The next morning Hanno is training with the other slaves, but Vigo is still bitter and sends the group away to make Hanno handle the rowing mechanism alone. At the end of the day Hanno's hands are raw, so Ravi takes care of them while sharing his story. Ravi is a free man and could have already returned to his homeland, but he met a woman, so they started a new life here in Rome. The next gladiator fight will be on ships. The arena is filled with water and a few sharks are swimming in it. The opponents open fire with flaming arrows, and whenever a man is hit, his body falls into the water and becomes shark food. Hanno tells his team to keep rowing, and when they're close enough to the other ship, they destroy their oars. Arrows keep flying and kill a few more men, but this never stops Hanno's men from rowing. Since their enemy can't move without oars, Hanno's ship moves forward and rams right into the other ship, breaking it down in the middle. Then Hanno and his men jump on the enemy's boat to start killing them one by one. More bodies fall into the water as the broken ship is pushed against the wall, putting Hanno near the main seats. He grabs a crossbow and shoots at Acatius, but a fighter pushes him at the last second and he misses. The arrow lands between the twins, who think this was a personal attack. After the fight, the slaves chant Hanno's name again. Vigo comes to scold Hanno for his crossbow trick, but Hanno says Vigo should be glad the arrow wasn't for him. Meanwhile Lucilla's maid shares all the secrets with Thrax. Later Macrinus comes to Thrax's home to pick up all the money from their bets, pointing out this is his house now. Instead of money, Thrax pays him with secrets. There are rebels planning to dethrone the twins, however that plan has been delayed until certain gladiator is rescued from the arena. That night, the palace soldiers pick Lucilla up at her home. In the gladiators' quarters, Acatius and his men are sneaking in to rescue Hanno. However, the emperor's soldiers are already waiting to quickly shoot the men with arrows before capturing Acatius. The couple is taken to see the twins and Geta scolds them for their betrayal, only for Acatius to laugh at him. This enrages Caracalla, who grabs a sword and tries to kill Acatius. Geta immediately stops him, saying the punishment must be public. After the couple is taken to a cell, Macrinus points out that crucifixion is for thieves and Acatius is a hero. So if the emperors want to stay on the citizens' good side, sending Acatius to the arena would be a better idea. The next day Ravi shows Hanno the shrine to the gladiator champions, and Hanno notices that Maximus' name has been scratched off. But in Maximus' grave, his armor and swords are still kept in good condition. On the wall Hanno reads, "What we do in this life echoes in eternity." For the next gladiator fight, extra soldiers are protecting the main seats and Lucilla is kept in shackles. Acatius is the first gladiator and he must fight against soldiers of the Praetorian Guard. Having so many opponents isn't easy, and Acatius is wounded a couple of times, but he's still a magnificent warrior and manages to kill every soldier with his sword. Next Hanno is sent out and starts fighting Acatius, so the crowd doesn't know who to cheer for. Both men are excellent fighters and the battle goes on for a while without signs of ending soon. Eventually Acatius gets tired, so he tells Hanno he knows his real identity and drops his swords before raising his hand as a sign of surrender. Geta immediately puts his thumb down, but before Hanno can raise his sword, Acatius explains he truly loves Lucilla and he would have died for Maximus. This makes Hanno drop his sword too and the emperors get angry, so they order the archers to proceed with the execution. The arrows immediately kill Acatius and Hanno asks the crowd if this is how Rome treats its heroes, because then the citizens should expect to be treated worse. Then the crowd begins booing the emperors and the guards keep the people back while their leaders leave the Colosseum. In the evening Macrinus visits Hanno to ask him why he let Acatius live. Hanno explains building a better Rome is possible, but Macrinus thinks that's an impossible dream and reminds Hanno he's just a tool. On the streets, the citizens are rioting and starting fires all over the place as they ask for the twins' heads. The soldiers try to stop them, but the crowd fights them and overwhelms them with their numbers. In the royal chambers, Geta and Caracalla begin arguing over what to do and Caracalla blames everything on Geta, who responds by throwing water at his brother's face. Caracalla storms out of the room and Macrinus follows him to manipulate him. He says that Geta will blame Caracalla for everything in public so Caracalla should confront him. Tired of having to share everything, Caracalla grabs a blade and cuts his brother's hand. Geta stops him from going further and reminds Caracalla that he loves him, causing him to hesitate. Suddenly Macrinus appears behind Caracalla and guides his hand to slash Geta's neck a few times before stabbing him. In the morning Lucilla visits Hanno and gives him Maximus' ring. In return Hanno shares his condolences before they reconcile with a hug. Meanwhile Caracalla takes over the throne and announces his monkey will be his first consul while Macrinus will be his second. Macrinus presents Geta's head to the senators and explains he needs more power to protect their government, so they vote to make him leader of the Praetorian Guard. Afterward Macrinus visits Lucilla to tell her that he used to be a slave for her father, and now he plans to end the imperial bloodline by becoming emperor himself. At the same time Hanno gives the ring to Ravi, asking him to take it to Acatius' army in Ostia. Before leaving, Ravi gives Hanno the cell keys. The next day Ravi has to avoid a few guards to reach the general, who immediately agrees to help when hears the ring was sent by Lucius, the Prince of Rome. At the Colosseum, Vigo announces this will be Hanno's last fight and shows him the wooden sword of freedom, which he can win if he defends his mother. Suddenly Hanno opens the cell door and knocks Vigo down before slowly killing him with a wooden sword. The other slaves also come out of their cells and quickly kill all the guards who try to stop them. While the slaves open the way, Hanno goes to his father's grave to take his sword and armor. He still has the arrow that killed Arishad and tells it to wait for him. Afterward Hanno gives an inspiring speech to the slaves, who all agree to fight for their freedom. Then he enters the arena and finds Lucilla tied to a post surrounded by rebel senators while the crowd chants his name. Royal soldiers enter the arena too and the crowd boos them, but before they can attack, the slaves rush in to help Hanno fight with fair numbers. As a fierce battle ensues, Caracalla gets excited, but Macrinus is frustrated and tells a commander to call the cavalry. However, this can't be done because the cavalry is protecting the city since Acatius' old army is coming from Ostia to invade. They still manage to spare a few soldiers, who soon enter the arena and start killing both slaves and senators without mercy. The crowd freaks out and a guard shoots an arrow, killing a spectator. This is the last straw and now the crowd begins to riot, pushing the soldiers off the walls but also losing more civilians in the process. While everyone is distracted, Macrinus uses the chance to kill Caracalla by inserting a bodkin into his ear. In the arena, enough soldiers have been killed to create an opening and Hanno tries to rescue his mother. At that moment Macrinus shoots an arrow that pierces Lucilla's heart, so she gives Hanno her last words of encouragement before dying. Afterward Macrinus leaves on a horse to join the army at the gates, so Hanno steals a horse to follow him. Minutes later, the Praetorian Guard meets Acatius' army led by Ravi outside the city. Hanno appears in front of Macrinus and introduces himself as Lucius, the real heir to the throne. He tackles Macrinus to throw him off his horse and the men begin fighting with his swords. Macrinus turns out to be a fearsome opponent who manages to break Hanno's sword and keeps him short-sighted by throwing dirt at his face. Then Macrinus pushes Hanno into the river and starts stabbing, but the sword keeps bouncing on the armor. Hanno sees himself in the afterlife again and remembers his mother's last words before resurfacing with regained strength. He punches Macrinus before retrieving his sword to cut off his arm, followed by a slash to his stomach that finally kills him. After the body floats away, Hanno reminds the armies of his grandfather's dream of the perfect Rome. All the soldiers chant to show their support and agree not to fight anymore. That night, Lucius goes to the arena and takes some of Lucilla's blood before picking up some dirt in his father's name.